aboard!
Hi gentle people, good morning and welcome back on the channel. I'm Val from 18 Squad Lab, and today I show you how I realized this winter diorama, including the brand new kit from Das Werk, the 88mm on the Niton Vomac. If you are interested in constructing this kit, you can find the complete construction video on the channel. You can find the link here above. The little old barn was also scratch built, so if you want to know how to create this kind of little house, the video is also available on the channel. As you can have seen in the previous images, the whole diorama project started with a few drawings on a piece of XPS foam. The idea was to pre-position the main elements in the environment prior to cut the foam. My idea was to present my diorama on a non-rectangular, let's say classical base, so I decided to incorporate some curves in the main support. I also wanted to create a kind of stair structure, starting from low to high, and to position the Vomac in the highest position, so to give it a little bit more importance. These points also fitted with the tactical reality of an anti-aircraft gun, as these pieces of equipment are logically located on the highest point, just to offer the crew the best all-round visibility. I also thought that offering a nearby old barn to my crew would add a valuable comfort asset in these harsh winter conditions. So the whole main frame of this diorama has been constructed with XPS foam. This foam is cut here with the hot wire machine from Proxxon, and all these pieces of XPS foam has been glued together with PVA glue. The main topography of the scenery was sculpted using the hobby knife, cutting through the foam. The main difficulty here was to create a slopey terrain, while at the same time leaving some flat spaces for my Vomag, which is in firing position, which means with the stabilizer arms extended. Given this anti-aircraft gun was also part of a bigger combat group, I also intended to reproduce a very damaged mud road through an open field. Obviously, when you have 10 or 15 trucks passing through that kind of field during winter condition, you can imagine easily the damages created in such a road. To go further into detailing of the ground topography, I apply modeling clay on my XPS foam. I apply first a thin layer of PVA glue prior to spread my modeling clay. Watch out here, do not apply too much PVA glue because it can mix with your modeling clay and turn it quickly into mud. I really like to work with modeling clay because you have less cracks than with plaster. You also have less retraction, I think, it's my personal opinion. It's rather cheap, and it's a ready-to-use product, so there is no mixture to do with water and so on. It's quite straight from the box. Another great advantage of the modeling clay is that you can give it the shape you want with your fingers just by humidifying a little bit the surface. It's really easy to create ruts, holes, crevices, and then to insert inside of it some little wood elements or little stones, gravel, little rocks, whatever the objects you want to insert in the clay while still wet. You can also easily sculpt your vehicle wheels or track footprints in the clay. That's what I did here for my Vomag. All you have to do is to use a spare part from your kit and to respect the correct distance between the tires. I told you it was easy to insert objects in the clay while still wet. Well, I forgot here to insert my stabilizer arms wood supports while still wet, so I have to do it while hard. Some historical pictures shows that the Vomags usually had wood blocks below the stabilizer arms to improve the ground resistance, especially in muddy terrain. The challenge here was to have all these blocks correctly level. So as you can see, I had to dig some holes in the support and insert some little balsa sheet below the wood blocks. I was also inspired by these pictures showing the tree trunks below the front wheels. Once these steps completed, my tree trunks have been glued with PVA glue. I used wooden markers on the supports to define the exact location of my VOMAG to continue with the next steps. Another interesting items I found on these reference pictures were this kind of wooden devices used to improve the off-road capability. To reproduce this item, I used small branches having the same diameter, more or less. And instead of putting these devices on the truck, I've decided to put them straight into the mud. As I explained initially, it's much easier to insert items when the clay is still wet. So to make the job easier, I decided to fill in the holes with modeling clay and to add another layer of modeling clay below the VOMAG so that I could insert all these little small branches within the fresh clay. So this is also an advantage of working with modeling clay. You can add multiple layers on top of each other so long you apply a little bit of PVA glue in between each layer. The little wall alongside the field has been constructed exactly the same way as our little old barn. It will also be painted exactly the same way with the same references. So I invite you to go and check this video on the old barn construction if you are interested by this procedure. It will just receive a little bit more damages, so cracks in the stones and little holes. I also removed a lot of stones on the top side of the wall. The little metallic entry fence was scratch built using evergreen strips for the horizontal frames and 0.4mm brass rod from Albion Alloy. Nothing rocket science here. I just found my inspiration in the nearby mountain range where I usually walk. These kind of little fences are used to separate the cattle. My initial fence had 3 horizontal frames, but my friend Daniel told me that it was a little bit out of scale and too high, so I finally decided to cut the third stage to make it a little bit smaller. The lock mechanism was done with evergreen strip and 0.4mm lead wire, and the hinges were constructed with 0.15mm brass sheets. Basically, I used the exact same procedure as I used for my old barn main doors, so you can find other example of that kind of construction in that video. This nice little fence then received a base coat of dark rust, followed by a coat of hull red and chocolate applied with the sponge technique. On top of this work, I finally painted my fence with a more vivid red color, just to recall the red used on the old barn doors. As I've shown initially, my base is done with XPS foam, so the lateral sides are quite ugly. So let's make them a little bit nicer using balsa wood. It's quite an easy product to use. For the curve section, I use balsa a sheet of 1mm width, just to be able to curve them without breaking the sheet. The balsa section are glued in position with PVA glue and hold in position with masking tape. It's quite easy afterwards to cut the excess of balsa with the hobby knife. After a proper sanding operation, I painted all the balsa section with black color, and I applied 2 layers of gloss varnish on top of it. Okay, time to give this huge piece of modeling clay a more realistic texture. So prior to applying mud, I decided to paint all the ruts with burnt umber color from AK Interactive. It proved to be almost the perfect match with respect to the color with the next product you will see. The product I used to cover my modeling clay was Muddy Ground from AK Interactive. It's a very nice product, easy to use, straight from the jar. Just apply it with an old paintbrush. Its color is really realistic, the texture as well. It dries really fast and it's rock hard once dry. I also used it mixed with Grassflock Late Fall 2mm in order to reproduce the damaged grass on the rut's edges. This is important because it also helps to create transition between the different sections. I mean, the muddy section with the grass section with the snow section. So in between each type of terrain, we have to create transition. Because my diorama is supposed to reproduce winter condition with a kind of succession of positive temperatures and negative temperatures, I wanted to mix a part of mud and other part of snow. To emphasize the realism of mud, I mixed Muddy Ground product with still water to create a kind of more liquid paste, and I applied this mixture with a paintbrush at some key locations inside my ruts. I then applied a pure still water product in the rest of the ruts to give a more shiny aspect to my mud. Well, we did the topography, we've got earth on the ground, now vegetation can grow. So here again, we need to organize a little bit of our work. I don't know if my organization was the best one. Maybe I could have applied my static grass at the initial stage, but in that case, I've decided to maintain this static grass application for the last part. My little tree is coming from the nearby mountain range. It's cheap and quite realistic. I then applied autumn tufts 6 and 8mm from AK Interactive. These tufts are to be detached from their support and are self-adhesive. Now, this sticky part is not sufficient to my opinion, so I just pre-position all these tufts on the support without glue, just to organize a little bit their positioning. And as you can see, they have different colors in between the ochre yellow and light brown khaki. Once happy with the result, I detached every single tuft and glued these tufts one by one with PVA glue just to make sure that they won't detach in the future. Speaking about vegetation, let's not forget our rustic wall. So for this wall, I used the same type of tuft, so the autumn tuft 6mm, but I also use an additional reference, which is winter tuft. These grass tufts are coming already prepared with a snowy appearance. It's always nice to increase diversity when speaking about vegetation on a diorama. As can be seen on the old stone walls in the countryside, sometimes you can see even small trees growing in between the stones. So I took advantage of having small branches from the mountain range to insert some of these little tiny branches in between a few stones of this wall. It's really easy to do. You just have to drill a small hole within the foam and insert your branch with a little bit of PVA glue to fix it in position. Again here, diversity is key to increase realism. That's why I continue to add some more vegetation on my diorama. Here a small cut tree trunk, then some higher grass tuft that I realized myself with cut paintbrush bristles, and then finally some more complex bushes. All these elements are fixed on the support with PVA glue. All these plant elements will finally contribute to the overall country look of our scenery. It's now time to fill in the blanks between all these elements using a static grass. As you can see, I used different height of grass, but also having different colors, ranging from 2mm to 6mm. And to do that, I use a similar glue to the Mod Podge mat which is a kind of PVA glue, but incorporating a little bit of a resin element inside of it. This product is coming from the brand Acrylex. It is a little bit more fluid and thinner than conventional PVA glue. The different sizes of grass have been applied on top of each other. I might develop this technique in another tutorial. Well, our diorama is taking life progressively. It's now time to incorporate the different elements prior to the snow application. Almost all these different elements have been glued in position with PVA glue. Obviously, it's not possible within the scope of this video to explain how all individual elements have been created, but these might be different subjects for the future EP19s on the channel. This diorama includes many little features like 3 different figures, a snowman, a hay cart, barbed wire, as you can see here, the remains of logging activities, which have been fixed on the support with sand and gravel glue from Migamo. All these little elements are the remains of all the little logs that we've cut for the WOMAG, and will greatly contribute to create this rural atmosphere. I've already spoken about the transitions between the different scenery main features, like for example creating a transition between the muddy terrain from the ruts and the grass areas. We will complete this transition by adding another layer of this mixture made of grass flocculate fall and muddy terrain, creating damaged grass spots alongside the ruts border. Last step prior to the snow application, there are some areas in between the little old barns and the position of the WOMAG that will incorporate melted snow. These are the WOMAG crew movement zones. Given the repeated passage of the crew between the old barns and the WOMAG, the grass should be flat, crushed by the crew feet. And so it was necessary to flatten this static grass. I just did it by crushing the static grass with my fingers. I also applied this procedure around the snowman where the kids is playing. Okay, we can start now with the snow application, and we will start logically by the melted snow, again for transition reason. My melted snow is a mix of snow sprinkle, snow microballoons and still water from AK Interactive, and this mixture will be applied with a paintbrush. The application of this mixture on flat areas was really easy. This paste is quite sticky. Now, to be honest, while dealing with grass, it's another story. I had the feeling that I was trying to apply whipped cream in someone's hair. I met the same difficulty with the next product, Terrain's Snow. I think these products are quite easy to apply on regular flat surfaces, but as soon as you are dealing with grass, the sticky consistency of the product turns its application much more complex. The footprints in the melted snow were done using a spare parts of an old figure, a resin leg. I'm sorry, but I forgot to record these images. After the footsteps were filled in with a little bit of still water. I've decided to apply some other accessories within my fresh melted snow. It turned their integration within the scenery much more realistic. These items were also glued using PVA glue. The empty shell casing thrown away by the crew were also glued in position within the grass with PVA glue. I have decided to postpone a little bit their positioning within the grass just to evaluate how the snow will integrate the terrain, especially because these empty shell casing were hot, and so all these areas around them had to remain free of snow. After the melted snow area is completed, I started with more fresh snow application. For this, as I explained, I used terrain snow from Eka Interactive, and as I explained, and you can see it in these images, it's just like applying whipped cream in someone's hair. It's quite difficult to apply this product on grassy terrain. That's why I've decided to work progressively, applying small patches of snow. Each patch of snow was then blended with the surrounding grass with still water, and I then added snow micro balloons on top of each patch. It's really important to work by little area at a time because snow micro balloons has to be applied while the terrain snow is still wet. So as I explained, I work progressively. I cover the full scenery with snow 3 times. So basically there are 3 layers of patches that are superimposed until reaching the correct snow coverage that I was intending to reproduce. Again here, watch out with the transition. We need to apply smooth transition between the melted snow and the fresh snow, let's say. It's done using still water in order to blend the terrain snow product above the melted snow area and adding a snow micro balloon on top of all that. The very last step for this snow creation was to spray all the snowy areas, whether melted or fresh, with gloss varnish. Again here, it's very important to work small areas at a time, because while the varnish is still wet, we will apply on top of it a thin layer of ice sparkles that we will speckle on top like salt to give this final shiny, sparkling visual effect of the snow. Well, this is it for the snow creation, and that was, to my opinion, the most challenging part of this whole diorama production. It was a funny process, but actually that required quite a lot of organization and pre-planning phases to reach the final goal. I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial and that it might be helpful for your next creation. I see you in the next video, and for those concerned, enjoy your holidays. Greetings from Portugal. Ciao, ciao.